Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Now in the past I've showed how to use your blending sponges to apply your lunar paste and get some really cool effects. But I've been playing around in my craft room recently and have been trying using a blending brush with the lunar paste and have loved the effects, so let's check it out. Alright, first I'm going to start off by comparing these two application methods. So let's start off with the blending foam. I just applied a little blending sponge right onto my tool here, and then I can take a little bit of the lunar paste, this happens to be bee sting, on my palette knife, and put it on here. Now you can see that a lot of it sinks right into the surface of that blending sponge. This is really going to kind of soak some of the medium up in there. And then you can go onto your project and really start applying it. You can see that nice thick layer that it gives. It's a little bit difficult to kind of blend it out into the cardstock there, but it gives a nice thick and smooth layer of that lunar paste onto the cardstock. Now for the brush, I like to take a little piece of plastic, but you could use your craft sheet as well. And then I'll take about the same amount of the lunar paste, and I'm just going to spread it out flat onto my craft sheet here. Now the reason why I like to do this is instead of kind of sticking it down into those bristles, I want it to just touch the surface of them. So I'm gonna go in here then, tap that on just a little bit there. All you need is a little tiny bit, and then we can go in and do the same exact thing. Here you can see that there's not as much on the surface here, so we'll just have to go back in and dip a little bit more, but you can get a very similar kind of result. I find that it blends it really nice and smooth. You can not really see the bristles because of how tightly dense and packed they are. And I like that effect that it gives. It's quite easy to kind of fade it out a little bit if you want to with a brush more than it is with the applicator tool because it's got all those little bristles that'll kind of fade it out there. I also really like that super smooth application that you're able to get with the blending brush. Now let's talk about cleaning everything up. So with the palette knife, I'm able to easily scrape this off the surface. You can see we just used only a tiny little bit because it's only on the surface of that brush. And then we can take all the excess and put it right back into our jar, which is something that I really appreciate. All right, now you need to clean out both of these tools so they don't harden and get all crusty. And this is where things really change. So let's start off with the blending foam. This is something that I struggled with at first, but I found the best method for this was spraying it down with quite a bit of water or taking it off with a little bit of Velcro and putting it underneath the sink. And then just going to really dab all of this off. You can see there's a ton of paste that's coming out of there that is kind of wasted because it's absorbed into there, and you're just going to keep going until this sponge turns completely white, which definitely takes a little bit of a while. This is a good application for some things, but having to do this cleaning method for everything has gotten a little bit annoying. Now with the brush, we can do the same thing. Spray this down. It's still a little bit of a cleaning process, but one thing that I liked about it was it really sits at the top of the bristles. It doesn't sink in as much as the foam. So this cleaning process is very much so quite a bit easier. You can already see that it's gone back to clean and clear, and this blending brush is already nice and clean. I also would recommend having a separate brush or set of different sizes of brushes for your pastes. That way if they do get a little bit crusty, it's not going to affect your ink blending later on. Now let's create a project. I'm going to use the Mosaic Floral Stencil, and I want to use the center flower here. It's a layering stencil, but I'm just going to use this one layer and for an A2 size card. So I'm going to grab in a piece of tomato soup cardstock, and we're going to do a little bit of blending with our paste. So I'll take a little bit of mint tape. The cool part about these Slimline stencils is I can mask off certain areas, and here I just want this one flower on here. So I'll just mask off that and the edge here so that we don't get paste where we don't want it. I'm going to use the bee sting for a little bit of a tone-on-tone look. And again, I'm going to grab out my piece of plastic for off to the side here to create our palette with our brush. So just take a little bit of that paste, because a little bit goes quite a long way. We can always add a little bit more down if we need to. And then go in with your blending brush. Again, I'm just going to tap right onto the surface here. You don't want it all the way in that bristles. And then all you need to do is simply go in with a blending type motion. I find that if you pounce, you're going to get that texture still in there because it's a texture paste, and it's going to hold all of that dimension. So if you want that, that's a cool look too. But here, I'm just going in with a smooth blending motion to get it all blended out. Now another thing I love about this thin application method is all you need to do is either wait a couple of seconds or go in with your heat tool. If you're impatient like me, heat it for just a couple seconds, and that is going to be dry already, and none of that shine comes off on your fingers. It's one of my favorite parts about it. All right, and then I'm going to shift the stencil, move it right down to this area here, and we're going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to mask off this top flower right here, and then we can go in with our blending brush. And again, just take some of that paste we've got on the surface there and go in and start our blending. The brush just gives a really nice smooth application of that. And again, it only takes a couple seconds to get that paste down, and there we go. I love the tone-on-tone look that this has until you like tilt it, and then it gives you just a ton of shine. So when it comes to cleanup, again, I'm going to just take any of the excess, put it right back into the jar there. And also you want to clean your stencils pretty quickly. So again, I just put some water onto there and rub it until it's nice and clean. And then to switch colors with the brush, again, it's as simple as I showed you in the beginning. Spray down your brush with a little bit of water and then just wipe it until it comes completely clean and clear of that color. All right, now for the focal point flower, I'm going to take the same exact Floral Mosaics stencil and just line it up kind of right in that edge. And to make it a focal point, I'm going to use a different color. So here I'm going in with just a little bit of Slippery When Wet. I'll take my blending brush again, dip it right into there, and then go onto the surface and start blending over top. All right, once that's done, I can peel this off the surface there. Look at all of that awesome, beautiful shine that we have going on there. And I love that you can still see those petals underneath it. I think it just is so stunning. All right, once everything is all dry, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of beasting on my foam blending tool. And one thing I like to do sometimes is just kind of darken the edges a little bit to brighten the center and give it a little bit of contrast and dimension. So just adding that little tiny bit of ink to the edge. It doesn't do a whole lot, but it draws your eye more towards the center and the focal point that we've created. All right, for the sentiment, I'm using the lovely Lantana stamp set. I love these encouraging sentiments from here, and I'm going to stamp down the I appreciate you so much. So I'll just use a little bit of black ink and then go in and stamp it down onto my stark white cardstock. And to finish it off, I'll throw over a layer of clear embossing powder and heat set this until it's clear and shiny. All right guys, here is that finished card. I love that we used that Mosaic Florals, which was a slimline stencil, and brought it down to an A2 size card design, and all of that shine with the blending brushes is just so stunning. All right guys, let's move on to the next card and talk about blending these pastes together, which is kind of tricky, but a lot of fun to do. So I'm gonna grab some Lunar Pastes in some different colors. Here I'm starting off with a little bit of that bee sting again, and I'm going to just spread it out like this. I've wiped off my palette knife, and I'm next going to go into a little bit of the Slippery When Wet color. We'll add again just a little bit down there, and then put the excess back in. And here I'm just creating a palette of the different colors of pastes I want to use. I'm gonna grab my Going Places stencil, and I'm using a Slimline card here. So I'm just going to put this right up at the top there, and then we can use a little bit of tape to mask things off. So I'm gonna mask off the basket first, and then also the side here, so that I don't get any paste where I don't want it. All right, so I was using this blending brush earlier, but now I'm going to move into this smaller one, so it's a little bit easier for me to blend colors together. Now I'm gonna start off with a little bit of my Slippery When Wet, and again, just grab a little bit onto that brush there, tap a little bit of excess off, and then start my blending. And I'm gonna go in a kind of swirling motion, like I had showed in the last one, and just kind of blend that color upwards a little bit. I can then kind of tap off the excess if I want to, and then move on into my next color. Here I'm using Traffic Cone, and then I'm gonna start blending these together. And they're not gonna blend like an ink would, right? They're not gonna smoothly blend together and transition just as beautifully. It's a little bit different of a medium. It's more of, I would think of it as kind of like a paint. So what you're gonna do to blend these colors together is kind of take that brush and push it like that to move those colors together, if that makes sense. And then once again, back down to that yellow and swipe upwards to blend that together. Do you guys kind of see what we're doing? Kind of get it a little bit? It's a little bit weird of a motion if you're used to ink blending, but when you kind of start working with them, it's a little bit easier and more understandable. And you don't want any color that's like darker than the other to really overpower it. So I'm gonna go in and again, bringing that in with a swiping motion, and then going back in with some Traffic Cone and going right in between there and bringing those together. And I'm just going to keep going back and forth in between the colors to build up intensity, first of all, and then also to blend them together really nicely. And it's easy to get kind of a seamless blend when you kind of go back and forth like that. All right, I'm just gonna go in and heat set it for a couple of seconds to dry this down. And once you heat set it, honestly, the shine is even more intense once it's completely dry. So that's nice and dry to the touch now, and I absolutely love that shine that it gives. With this stencil, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of Gur, which is my brown, and just my little blending tool here, and keep that in the exact same spot so that everything lines up. And then we can go in and just blend down the little basket here. So just do a little bit of kind of shading there to add the darker color in the corner, and there we have it. All right, since we're switching colors entirely, I'm gonna go off to the side and just wipe this off of those reds to kind of clean it out a little bit before we move on to our next set of colors. And again, pretty easy to clean out right away. All right, for our next color palette, I'm gonna bring in just a little bit of the clear skies. And I'm also grabbing some Later Gator as well. All right, for this next one, I'm going to again tape off that little basket and then tape off the sides so that we don't get anywhere we don't want it. All right, now here I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm starting off with just a little bit of slippery when wet. I'm going to bring some of that color in on the bottom. And like I said, this technique's all about layering. And also, I tap off to the side almost like I do with inks to clean it off just a little bit before we move on to the next color. So when we bring in Later Gator here, we'll bring it in, and I got the technique a little bit more down and easier to explain now. And the reason why I like to use this instead of a blending tool to do this sort of technique is the bristles make it almost easier to make a smoother blend. I don't know what it is about them, but because it's a bunch of bristles instead of a big circular sponge, it's easier to go back and forth and achieve that smooth blend in between the colors. And then last but not least, we'll bring in a little bit of clear skies at the top there and add that blue color in. All right, and once I'm happy with that result, I'll peel it off again, and there we have our nice blend in between those colors. All right, and when it comes to cleaning off your palette, if you want to use some of the excess paste that's on here, you can go in with a piece of cardstock and kind of drag it through. You're gonna wanna press down and kind of swipe down, and you're going to pull off some of that amazing paste that's on the surface there. And this might not be the coolest background, but it might be cool for die cutting later on because it's got all of that beautiful color, but also the pearlescent shine that comes along with it. I've heat set this to show you guys what it looks like once it's completely dry. A lot of that shine comes back, and it would be, like I said, just something beautiful to die cut little words out of, or die cut certain sections to get some of that beautiful shine. But then I'm going to go in with the Scene Maker stencil. I love this one because it's got everything you need in it to make a scene, and I'm going to use the sky here. So all I'm gonna do is take a little bit of mint tape. You do wanna mask off kind of below it. We've included so many images on this stencil, which is really awesome. So just tape off the things you don't want to see, and then we'll use the clouds. All right, then all I need to do is take these clouds and a little bit of my breakup blue or any color of blue ink here, and just go into here and lightly blend right above those clouds. And just a little bit goes a long way on that white surface, and it's going to create this beautiful sky look, like these are really high up in the sky. And I'm just going to continue this little cloud pattern all the way to the top of my cardstock here, just kind of shifting it and moving it every single time so that you get a different pattern of clouds as you go up. All right, and then I'm just going around the edge and blending a little bit around there to make it not so stark white, and also again draw your eye right to the center of the card. There's a coordinating stamp set with these hot air balloons so you can stamp over top of the details, but they also have just these little baskets here, which I'm going to stamp down using a little bit of my Gur ink to add just a little bit of detail onto there. So I've lined these up onto an acrylic block to line up with both of the hot air balloons at once, and then we can just stamp it right down. And that just gives that fun little basket detail on top of both of those, which I really like. All right, I've added some gems and finished off the sentiment, and I love how this turned out. That Slimline card is so much fun, and I love the blended lunar paste that we were able to achieve using the blending brushes today. I hope you enjoyed seeing these cards really focusing on the beautiful shine of that lunar paste. Leave a comment down below on which card was your favorite, and also click that subscribe button if you enjoyed it as well, and I hope to see you guys soon in another card making video. Bye!